Every year, thousands of missionaries serving all over the world return home from honorable missions. They've experienced difficulties, shared testimony, and witnessed miracles. And who will hear those amazing stories? A few hundred people over the course of their life? These are stories that uplift. These are stories that encourage. These are stories that inspire. On Return with Honor, we aim to share these stories with the world. Welcome to Return with Honor. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Return with Honor, the show where we interview recently returned missionaries. I'm Chuck James.
I'm Christine James, and tonight we are interviewing Janette Petersen. Woohoo! We're so excited to have you on our show.
Yeah, welcome to the show.
I'm excited. I'm really excited, although I'm probably the oldest returned missionary you've had on the show.
That's actually, I can tell you that that's not true, because we interviewed a couple missionaries, so they were definitely older than you.
Okay, good. No, I mean like oldest in returned time, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, okay. You've been back the longest, is what you're saying.
There we go. I'm probably not the oldest.
Well, let's start with that then. Where and when did you serve?
I was called to serve in the Peru mission, June of 2013 to December of 2014. And I got to serve all of my transfers there except for one, which I spent my first transfer in the glorious building of the MTC, the Provo MTC.
Yeah.
Which also is a very great mission.
So you were there for 1 month?
No, I was there for an entire transfer, so I was there for 6 weeks.
Okay. So what area of Peru did your mission cover?
Let's see. Piura is in the north of Peru. It's right underneath Ecuador. Piura is actually a rather large city, and then there's just little sub-cities. So it's just Piura.
Okay. So mostly the north, is that what you said?
Yeah, it's right underneath Ecuador. It's North Peru.
No?
It's on the beach.
Oh, okay. Beautiful. So going to Peru, what was kind of the biggest culture shock for you as you got there?
There were a lot of things. Probably the biggest thing was I knew it was going to be dirty. I really did. I knew it was going to be dirty. And we flew into Lima, which is the capital of Peru, and it's all nice and it's got paved streets and it's a mini, I don't know, they like to call it their mini America. It's a little rough on the edges in comparison, but it was a good job. And then I flew into Piura. It is a desert. It is North Edwards has more green than where my mission was.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah, that's saying a lot. There was no green. Everything was you couldn't have a clean house because of the sand and the wind and food. Whenever you went to go get food, there was dirt in your food. Just because that's how it was. And I guess I was not anticipating it to be. I mean, I was anticipating it to be dirty, and I just wasn't anticipating it to be dusty dirty.
No.
That's probably the biggest
So
one.
the dirt was was it in the air even, just because it was so windy?
Oh yeah. So we actually, in the mission manual, it says that you take showers in the morning. We as missionaries actually were required to take showers in the morning and in the evening because it was so much dust around. So, and then if you were sick or you had a cold or something, you had to wear a mask because of the amount of dirt in the air that would just eat at your throat.
Wow.
So that was kind of fun.
So maybe this goes along the same lines, but what was the biggest surprise for you as you got into the mission field?
I don't know. The amount of dogs. There were a lot of dogs
Just running
everywhere. Yeah, just running loose. They told me that there were going to be more animals than dogs, and in certain areas that held true, but my first area, it was just dogs. And I'm not scared of dogs, so that wasn't a problem. And they would come up and they'd be cringy and gross, so that kind of surprised me that they were so accustomed to being out on the streets that they would just walk up to anybody and beg. But then also the people themselves, in a way, surprised me because it's probably because it was my first area, but my first area was what they called gringo land, which means white person land, basically, because it was a big oil facility land. It just had a bunch of oil rigs and stuff, and so it used to have a lot of North Americans and a lot of Europeans in it. So it used to be predominantly white, and they, back in the 50s and 60s, kicked all of the white people out, and so here I am, a white missionary walking around in Talara, and so everyone just thinks that I'm one of the leftovers. And that could go very well or very poorly, and it really depended on the person and the day. And if it went really poorly, it went even worse because I didn't quite yet speak Spanish.
Right. Yeah.
Huh.
So that was fun.
That was
and the one, no, it was fun. It was definitely fun. There were some times whenever there would be one of those leftover North Americans or Europeans. I served in my first area for 4 transfers, so 6 months.
Wow.
And I was in, I want to say, my 5th or 6th month, and this guy comes up, and we're in the cubicle, internet cubicle. It's on a P day, and he asks us for this. He comes up and he's like, "Hey, so this scripture in 1 Corinthians that says this and this and this and this," but it was in English, and I looked over and I was like, "Did I just hear that correctly? That was English, right?" And I was so dumbfounded that my Spanish companion had to talk to him.
That's so funny. You
You
were just so shocked, huh? You just forgot about English, huh?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It is a surprise when you're in a predominantly Spanish area and all of a sudden somebody starts speaking English to you. It sounds really strange to your ears. So, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Tell us a little bit about the food that you experienced there in Peru. What did you like? What did you hate?
What did I eat? Oh, it was delicious. And this is where I'm going to brag on Peru. Because Peru, they apparently have this worldwide food competition, which I don't actually know what it is in English, but in Spanish it's the gastrical, something about food. Doesn't matter. But like pleasing to the stomach. And Peru when I was there, Peru had won it 3 years running.
Wow.
This worldwide competition. So the food is fantastic. We like to say that it was its own little Garden of Eden because it had every single type of seed that you could imagine. There is no fruit in Peru that you can't find somewhere else in the world. Peru has every single type of fruit, so I was spoiled rotten when it came to fruit. Vegetables, there are a couple that Peru didn't have, but was pretty spoiled in that regard too. Bread was fresh baked every day, came around in a cart, so delicious. I was spoiled rotten when it came to food. My favorite was, and it was so funny because whenever the few times that members did actually cook for us, they would ask us, "Well, what do you want? What's the meal that you want?" And I would always say bistec a la pobre, which is steak as a poor man, or a poor man's steak. And they always were like, because it's just rice, fried platano, and then eggs on top, and then it comes with or without steak. which is really, 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 really cheap and not hard. It's practically their main food is eggs, rice, and fried bananas, basically. And so that they were always like, we want to make you something a little bit better. Like, what do you want? And I was like, no, that's my favorite one. I really like that one.
So did they just combine it together?
So you had a platter, a normal sized plate, just a dinner plate that we like to. It had the Machu Picchu mountain of rice, and then you would have 1 or 2 eggs on top of that, and then on the side of it you would have 2, 3, or 4 fried slices of platano, depending on the family and depending on their appetite, because you never served yourself. So it really depended on their appetite, not ours. And then you had, if you had the steak, that came on a separate plate. But they didn't generally have steak because steak wasn't really eaten. It was more chicken and turkey and just birds.
Well, I had a couple questions. So now you mentioned bread being delivered every day, and I imagine bread with us, we as a family will eat a loaf of bread for breakfast or, for lunch. But did they deliver that size of loaf, this size every day, or is that a much smaller portions? Because if it's delivered every day, I don't imagine you guys needing that much food.
Well, so it depends on the type of bread that you get. It also depends on the bakeries around you, because there were some bakeries that didn't deliver, but they would rather you just walk to them because they were one of the bakeries that had a lot of different options of bread. Mm-hmm. And they were always roll-size breads. I mean, none of them were ever bigger than this. So what you would do is the cart would go around about 6 or 7 in the morning. It depended on where you lived on its route. Ours happened to come about 6:45 almost every single day, which is great. It's fantastic. And we always just got the normal bread because in the cart they had this little bicycle, and on the front they had a little cart that you would you'd look inside first off to see if they had any of the bread you liked, and if they didn't, then you'd go get bread somewhere else. But it was, or you just sucked it up and had different bread for the day. And you just bought however much you needed. So we always bought 2 pieces in the morning.
Oh, that's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, it was nice. I loved it.
So on your mission, did you mostly prepare your own food, or did you have someone that made food for you, or did you eat with members? How did that work?
Breakfast and dinner we were in charge of breakfast and dinner. And then for lunch, depending on the area, you had what was called a pensionista, or a lunch lady, who was paid to only take care of our lunch. And she had to be trained by the mission president's cook.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it really did depend on the area. And the reason being is because, not because they can't prepare food or anything like that. It's just the way they prepare food is a lot different than most of the world. And so even people from Ecuador would get sick in the beginning months just because they weren't accustomed to the amount of oil in the food. So our food was significantly less oily.
So, was there any food that you had that you didn't like, or that was, or what was the most unique dish that you had there?
Okay, so I didn't like the fish, and my pensionista gathered that really quick, and she was really great. My first pensionista, because that was the only place that you had fish, because we lived on the beach. I mean, it was 2 blocks away from the beach, so fish all the time, fresh fish, and I just don't like fish, and she was really nice, and she was like, all right, I will only give you fish once a week because my family loves fish, and we are willing to make sure that you don't get fish all the time, but you will get it once a week. And I was like, okay, I can handle this. The most unique dish that I was served or that I ate?
Well, I guess both. Sounds like an interesting story. So let's hear both.
I think that I ate was just random intestines of different animals. I mean, it was random. It could have been the stomach or the liver or the heart. Chicken heart is really good. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise, because it's actually really good. But the one that I was served that I didn't eat, and I should have in that culture eaten it because it's very offensive not to eat it. Fortunately, I was already sick, and double fortunately, it was at my pensionista's house who knew that I was sick, so she wasn't gonna make me eat everything whenever I had been, the previous day vomiting my guts out. Every meal comes with soup. It just does. Even in 100 degrees, you will get soup. It's fine. It's the thing. And so she did a chicken soup. She was thinking of me, and she did a chicken, like a kind of a chicken noodle soup, basically. And it's a delicacy to have the chicken's beak or the chicken's foot.
Ooh.
I got both of them in my bowl. I don't know how you eat that. I really don't, because it's bone. I don't get it. It's like saying, "Here, eat the tooth." I don't know how you do that. You just can't. So, I took one look at it, and my stomach was not having it, and I don't know if it was because it was something I wasn't prepared for, or if it was something that my stomach was just queasy, and I just was like, no way is this happening. I don't know what the deal was, but I took one look at it, I was like, I can't do this. I can't. And I looked at my companion to save me because I needed some saving. And and the lunch lady's son came in at that moment. He's like, "Mom, what'd you do that for? You gave this sick one the delicate stuff? Here, I'll eat it for you." And I was like, "Yeah."
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, no, we had fish head. Fish eye is kind of weird. It's a gooey. It's gooey and chewy. I wouldn't recommend that one. I would probably say fish tail would be much better than fish eyes. It's fine. I just don't like fish in general.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Well, it sounds like the food was you had the full gambit of wonderful delicacies to what in the heck are they trying to feed me?
Yeah, but the mangoes were delicious. We went an entire month just eating mangoes for breakfast, and I'm pretty sure that's unhealthy, but it was delicious. I loved it.
So let's talk a little about before your mission. What was the biggest challenge for you getting to your mission? And maybe also tell us a little bit about the decision you made to go on a mission, because for sister missionaries, it's not necessarily the expectation like it is for the young men. So tell us a little bit about kind of that decision for you to go on a mission, and then what were the challenges for you to get on your mission, and how'd you overcome them?
Okay, so to go on the mission, we'll just start there. The age change had just happened, and to me, I was like, oh, that's fantastic. So many other people are gonna go. Never once thinking about myself. Never once. My siblings texted me and they're like, "Aha, you're gonna go now," and I'm like, "Haha, yeah, right." And so I always told myself that I was gonna go on a mission as a senior couple, or my husband would be a mission president, and I would be that would be great. So I always just anticipated going on a mission when I was a couple. Never when I was single. And There are a couple of things that led to me going on a mission. Some of them rather comical, some of them rather spiritual. So I'll just give two of them. The main two, my two stories. The first one is the comical one. I was going to everything happened in a week span, and like Monday for FHE we had somebody speak about missionary work, and then Tuesday for Institute we had somebody speak about the missionaries of the Book of Mormon. Wednesday for I was a nanny at the time, and so Wednesday was their mutual night, and Wednesday for their mutual night they did something. So everything was about missionary work and going on a mission or something like that, and it I was just thinking how great, this is wonderful, people are going to go on missions. And that Saturday I needed to get a gift for a friend, and this friend really, really, really wanted a Superman wallet. So I am looking all over the place for a Superman wallet. I'm in the mall, it's a rather large mall, and I anticipated them to have it, and they all had Batman or Spider-Man or Captain America or the Hulk, every other superhero they totally had, but they did not have Superman. And so I was outside and I was like, all right, Heavenly Father, I'll make you a deal. The next store I walk into, if it has a Superman wallet, I will go on a mission. Which is not something you should do with God unless you really fully anticipate doing what you said. And the next store I walked into, I was confident they wouldn't have it because it was Claire's, which is a little girl's jewelry store. And I walk up to the cashier, the lady there, and I was like, this is the most random question, but do you have a Superman wallet? And she goes, actually, we have a box of random superhero wallets. It was a wrong shipment, and we don't know who to return it to. So our manager just said that we could keep them or sell them. Let me go see if they have a Superman wallet. They had one. One out of that entire box, they had one. And so I was like, all right, well, today's Saturday. And that very next day, I went and talked to the bishop, and I was like, I'm going on a mission.
That's good.
He goes,
That's good.
So that's my funny story. My rather spiritual one is I generally receive inspiration for major decisions in forms of dreams. And it's very obvious whenever the Lord is giving me direction through a dream. It's never been a question as to whom it's coming from or from whom it's coming. That's correct grammar. But he gave me a dream of this little girl, and before I went on my mission, I described her as just a dark-skinned, it could be Mexican, Hawaiian, some type of that ethnicity, little girl, and she was sick on this rugged blanket, and all I remember is her parents saying, help her, please help her. And so I just remember whenever when President Rowley, my mission president, asked me why I was out on the mission, I said, I'm here to find the little girl and help her. I don't know who she is, but that's what I'm here for. And he was like, okay, that's the new answer. And I did find the little girl, and she's awesome.
Awesome.
Wow, that's a great story. How'd you end up finding her?
She was in one of my areas, and her entire family were members. That was the Albuquerque family and Albuquerque, and the reason she wasn't baptized was because she was deaf and she didn't understand what the missionaries had taught the family. And so when she turned 8, she didn't quite understand the principles. She knew that she needed to get baptized, but nobody knew how to conduct an interview. Nobody knew how to teach her the gospel. The program that she was in was just barely starting to teach sign language. Her mother was trying to learn, but nobody really knew anything. So I actually saw her in sacrament meeting my first Sunday in that area, which happened to be my second area. So 6 months into the mission, I saw her for the first time, and I just was like, oh my goodness, that's my girl. That's my little girl. I need to know who that is. And I turned to my companion and was like, who's that family? I need to know that family. Um, she was a little freaked out because she's like, it's just the Albuquerque family. It's fine. What's wrong with you? No, I need to know them. Which is interesting because I, in high school, got really into sign language. I am not very good at it, but most people anticipated that I would go to a sign language mission, which I did not. But I did end up using the sign language that I had learned with her. And then whenever I got a new companion, she actually took sign language in school. And so out of the entire 200 something missionaries, we had the 2 missionaries that spoke little sign language in the one area that needed it. So we were able to help her out there, and she was incredible. She knew what we were talking about, and half the times we were like, all right, how about you teach us? So
Oh, that's great. Oh, what a great story. Thank you for sharing
that's wonderful.
that.
Yeah.
So you got your call, you went on your mission. Tell us a little about how the church is doing in Peru. You know, what is it growing? What's the missionary work like?
Most of them are pilot missions. I think there are currently 8 missions. I might be mistaken on that. But I know for a fact that 5 of them are pilot missions. And what that means is we have a lot of different rules than normal missions. For example, my key indicators, which is something that every missionary is very familiar with. It's in their agenda, their planner. Ours, I think a normal missionary has 8 or 9, something like that. We had 14 and 15 and 16, depending on which time of the mission it was. And they were not anywhere close to the ones that are in the normal one. I don't actually know what the normal ones are, except for baptisms and confirmations, because that's the only one that was the same. So, we also had 6 lessons rather than 5. The little booklet, my family booklet, we had to bring that into every single lesson and figure out a way to incorporate it into every lesson, which was sometimes tricky, sometimes not. But it also meant that we had to have a family booklet filled out. And so it was kind of a game, well, it wasn't a game, but it was really fun to be able to fill out that booklet and get pictures. And I emailed home to Mom and I was like, Mom, I need pictures for my booklet. It's empty. It looks pathetic. So the church there, what they're trying to do is they're not emphasizing baptism and confirmation so much as conversion. Whether that mean through baptism and a confirmation into the church, or whether that mean by reactivating someone, or the active members, getting them temple worthy. So a lot of it was about conversion, and it wasn't, numbers were meaningless in my mission. It was how many souls are truly turning to the Lord, and how are they turning to the Lord. Okay, you've got an active member, but are they temple worthy? Okay, you've got a temple worthy member, but are they doing this? Or you've got somebody, it was more, are they doing family history work? What are they doing to continue their conversion process? So that was our mission.
That's great.
That's how the church is going.
Well, good. So was it mostly stakes or districts, or how was the organization of the church there?
There were a lot of districts. I I was in a district for my first area, and then my next 2 areas were stakes. So if you go to Lima in the capital and the other ones, you'll barely ever find a district there because it's grown pretty well, pretty substantial amount of members. But out where we were, there were definitely a lot of districts. I just didn't serve in all the districts. I only served in one district.
Okay.
So maybe more in the district areas, they had maybe more first generational, maybe converts, maybe. Then
Yeah, so my first area in Peru, we had the branch president was a member of 7 months, 8 months.
Yeah.
And his counselor only had 2 or 3 months on him. His second counselor was a member for a couple of years, but I think the oldest member in that branch was actually 11 years old. Like, not oldest age-wise, but oldest in the church-wise.
Wow. So it's still growing then. That's always good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
So what were some of the challenges that you faced while you were on your mission, and how did you overcome them?
Well, with myself, the challenges that I had were mostly medical. Got really, really, really friendly with the doctor. He knew me by name. We had a couple of unfun experiences, like endoscopia. How's that said in English? Where they stick the tube down your throat? Yeah. Okay. I don't actually know how you say it.
Endoscopy.
Endoscopy.
Okay. Yeah, that one. So we had some not fun experiences there, and but I just vowed I would never drink water, because every single time that I went to the medical facility, it was always related to water. Mm-hmm. So I just vowed I was never going to drink water, which really hard to do for 18 months, but we're going to go with it. And then with companions, what was something difficult with companions? With my first companion, it was just a language barrier thing, and we are now good friends, but during that companionship, we were not. And it really was because we couldn't communicate with each other.
Yeah. Sure.
Let's see, what else? With a couple of members, with the older members, it was always tradition. This is the way things are. And we're like, yeah, but you were taught wrong. Let's look at the book and see what it actually says. Like, they had this, in one area, they had this idea that the sacrament prayers must always be said by the 2 missionaries.
Wow.
And so when they switched it out with us sisters, they had no clue what to do. We're like, it can be any priesthood member. It's okay. Well, not any priesthood member, but you can do this. We can't help you with this. So there were some weird traditions like that we had to fluff out, and not all of the members were too happy with us fluffing them out.
But those are some good points that you bring up, because they didn't have the tradition of someone growing up, and we've had generations upon generations of church members knowing and learning all this stuff, and this is their beginning. And so it goes to show you how difficult it can be when you're just starting out and growing. Yeah. So that's a good point.
So I think that was probably the toughest with the members, is just whenever they disagreed with the way things were run, and we were just, sometimes as missionaries, we would just be like, what do we do to help them understand it does have to be done in the Lord's way? There were some district meetings about that one, actually. There were a lot of district meetings about that one, actually. because that was a big problem. And one of the things that our president and the 70 enforced was that missionaries were required, not recommended, not invited to, but required to attend the ward council meetings. And we were required to right any wrong in a loving manner. And for that reason, we had to know the church handbook pretty well. And so during our personal studies and our companionship study, we actually were required to read 5 pages every day of the manual because we needed to know what the procedures really
It's
were.
interesting.
Yeah. Good though, because I can now tell you what the church's policies are on practically everything.
Exactly. That's good experience for you.
Well, and I think that must have trickled out. I think a lot of the missions, if not all of them, are now basically requiring the missionaries to be in ward council. So sounds like, as you talked about pilot areas, it sounds like that's one of the things that got implemented worldwide, as far as I understand.
Well, it's good. It's definitely good.
So can you share any experiences that increased your faith, or that maybe a family that really you got to witness that, miracle of conversion, or any of those kinds of stories?
Yeah, Catacaos. That is my area. I call it my miracle area because every single day I learned something new. I mean, I learned stuff in other areas, and I definitely had spiritual experiences all the time. But Catacaos, there was just something about that city and that area that it was just incredible. So at that time, let's see, I had been out on my mission for over a year. It was my second to last area, and I had 4 transfers left, and it was incredible because so we had some goals, and it could be it was the area, it could be it was a companion, it could just be everything combined. My companion and I, that was one of the companions where, well, that was my English companion, my very few of those, because you don't get those. And we decided as a zone that instead of making monthly goals for the month, we would make pre-monthly goals. Because what's the point in saying, yeah, this month we want, or this year our goal is to have 12 baptisms, therefore we have to have 1 baptism every month. All right, let's do that. We decided that was kind of pointless, and that wasn't really relying on the Spirit but the logic of man, and that we would instead in January pray about March's goals, and so that in February we could be meeting the people and teaching the people and preparing the people, so by the time March came we could fulfill that goal. And so my companion and I, we were praying about goals, and 2 of our goals really stuck out because it was how many with a baptismal date and how many are going to be what we considered rescued, was a reactivated member. And so how many were going to be rescued. And we decided that we were going to write our numbers down separately. So if our numbers matched, obviously that was from the Spirit. And I remember I wrote down 8 baptisms, and I was looking at the number and I was like, 8 baptisms? Are you kidding me? And then 4/5 rescued, and I didn't understand why I put the slash down. And she put down 8/9 baptisms and 4 rescues. And we're like, all right, what's with the slash here? Obviously it's from the Spirit, but there's something going on. And so we kind of just had to, trust in the Lord because his ways are higher than ours, and we had no idea what we were doing. And we had the worst day ever. It was terrible. It started out with us going to meet with this member that usually invited us in and usually was really, really just loved our messages. But that day, I don't know what happened. She just didn't want anything to do with us and kicked us out basically. And then we went to our backup plan and we went to our backup plan and nothing was working. And we were like, okay, all right, what are we doing? And we had the 2 weeks before gotten a ward directory and split it up by streets, that way we could meet every single member that was on the register, whether they be active, whether they be inactive, whether they have moved, because a lot of it was cleaning up records because a lot of people had moved, whether they had died. We'd ran across a couple that had died, and we were like, oh, we should probably fix that. And so we were like, you know what, we've got nothing else to do. We said we were going to do this. Let's go through our ward directory until we have to go to our ward council, because ward council is in the afternoon. And so we're over here knocking on doors, trying to meet all these members. Nobody's really home. We got maybe one person that was home, and they were like, yeah, we're members, but we don't really want to listen to you. We're members. And just really discouraged. And there's these kids playing outside of this one house, and we're looking for one house, and we're like, hey, do you know where K is? We don't know where where's street K? They're like, you're on street K. Oh, okay, well, can you tell us where house 11 is? This is house 11. Cool, great, can we talk to your parents? We're looking for Pedro, which is his name. This guy had gotten baptized over 50-something years before with his wife. And he had kids. And his kids had kids. And when we walked in, there were 13 people in that room, 12 of which were over the age of 8. And 4 of them had been baptized, and 8 had not. And we're like, there's our number. And so we were ecstatic. We were just excited. We still didn't understand the slash part. We'll get to that part later. We were so happy that I remember we literally jumped and skipped down the road to ward council. And we walked into ward council, and we were a little bit late, which was bad on our part. And the bishop just gave us this weird look, like, what is up with you guys? And we're like, sorry, we just met the greatest house ever. Spiritual moment. Robert, we are totally here. We are listening to every word you say. Can you believe we just found this? We were just down a high. I don't think I remember a word that happened in that ward council at all. That's okay. And so then later there was another family that we'd been working on them for quite a while. She's actually, Zaida is probably my favorite person from that area. I actually, when my mom came to visit, well, not to visit, to pick me up, I had her tour a couple of my areas, and I made sure that we went to go visit Zaida. I was like, there are 2 people in this mission that you have to meet, and she is one of them. And she's the one who gave me the testimony of the Lord's Prayer, which sounds weird, because they're predominantly Catholic down in Peru, and the Lord's Prayer is everywhere. This woman literally prayed to have enough money to buy bread every day. She was living day by day. She had a mud and straw house, which missionaries had helped her construct. She had 5 children. I really don't know how she got through the day, honestly. And her husband, he just was not a good guy, but he was never around. He generally was in different cities, and so that was good because we just didn't like him. And she was a member, but her husband had told her that she would not be participating nor going to the church. And so she hid a Book of Mormon, and when he wasn't there, they read as a family. And most of her children were members, except for one who was coming up on her 9th birthday. And we were working so hard just to get his permission. We were like, oh, we just need his permission so the ward can baptize her. And we didn't care if it was a ward baptism or if it was a conversion. We honestly didn't care. We just needed his permission. And the son, so that was the daughter. The daughter was coming up on her 9th birthday, and the oldest son was flip-flopping between the churches because he didn't want to defy his father, but he loved coming to the LDS church, and he truly did have a testimony. He went out with the missionaries, the elders, all the time. But he was really torn as to his father's beliefs. And then the father comes back for an extended period of time. And this is where the slash comes in, because if we got his permission, then it would be another rescued or another baptism. But if we didn't get his permission, then we'd be stuck with the 8 and the 4. So we worked a lot of service hours in that house to make sure that he liked us. And he eventually came around to permitting his daughter to go to church, but to this day she's still not baptized, but she goes to church with her mother. And Harold, the oldest, the boy, he has a deal with his dad that he will go to church with his dad for the evening mass.
Mass, yeah.
Yeah, mass, and it's mas in Spanish, but okay. So he would go to the evening with his dad if his dad let him go to church with his mom in the morning. So that's their deal. He goes to both. Anyway, that was a really, really cool experience to see how the Lord's hand is in every step of the way. And he really is behind the goals, because there was no way I would have ever logically picked 8 and 4. I wouldn't have done that. I would have thought that's preposterous, ha 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 ha, funny. But because we truly were relying on the Lord to guide us in his work, it was his goals for us. He knew what we could do. So that was neat.
That's pretty cool.
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. How about scary moments? Anything that you decided, okay, I better not write home about this one.
Yeah, there were a couple. I know for a fact that I didn't write home about one. I'm pretty positive I wrote home about the other scary moments because they all had some type of spiritual connection to them. So did the other one that I didn't write home about, but it was at the very, very beginning of my mission, and I just thought Mom would be terrified. So we actually got a gun pulled on us, which was fun. I had no clue what they were saying at all. I just knew there was a gun pointed at me. Like, cool, great. No idea what this guy's saying. He's yelling at me. He looks like he's drunk. I don't know what's happening. Didn't write home about that one. Definitely did not write home about that one. But that one was kind of fun because we got saved by a drunk guy. And my companion decided that it was a genius idea, after getting saved by the drunk guy, to give him a word of wisdom pamphlet and get his contact information. And I was like, what are you doing? He actually is one of the strongest members now that I've ever met. So
Great. That's great.
yeah, I told Mom about that one after I came home.
Right. Yeah.
I told her about the time that I got bit by a dog, which also ended up being a blessing in disguise. I told her about the time when we almost got mugged, but my companion punched the mugger in the face and the mugger ran away. That was a fun one. That one wasn't a blessing in disguise. That one was just funny. It's just so funny. We're not supposed to do that as missionaries. We're supposed to let them rob us. And so we technically disobeyed the rules. And so our mission president calls and he's like, I heard what happened, sisters. As a mission president, I need to tell you that that was wrong. As a father to females, as a father to girls, wonderful job. I'm so glad you did that. So that was a funny one. Let's see, what else was... Gotten a almost car... Well, an 18-wheeler almost ran us over. A lot of scary moments, but they're worth it. They're all blessings in disguise. Except for the one where we punched the mugger in the face. That one was just funny.
Well, certainly some scary things can happen to missionaries, but generally speaking, the Lord watches out for you and you manage to survive.
Well, and I think they're all blessings in disguise, really. We just have to wait it out with patience to see how it's a blessing. There's a lot of blessings, even with the current stuff that's going around.
Yeah,
Good point.
Absolutely. Yep. So how has your mission changed you or the way you see the world?
I'm a lot cleaner. I did not anticipate that one. And that one's more of a worldly change. As far as spiritually, I look at people with a different light. I no longer look at people as who they are, but who they have potential to become. Because in the Lord's eyes, it's like the drunkard who saved us. I would have never seen potential, ever. But my companion, who was looking with her spiritual eyes rather than her natural eyes, realized that the Lord loves this man as a son of God, and he had just as much potential as anybody else did, as I did. And so I've definitely learned to see things in a spiritual light rather than a natural man's eyes. And I think I have a greater capacity to love because of that. Because I'm seeing them for who they will become, who they have potential to be. My health declined tremendously because of going to Peru, but I wouldn't take it back for the life of me. I came to really trust in the Lord, and trust His timing versus mine. I'm blessed to be patient, and I am very patient, and if anybody asked you before the mission, they would have told you that I was patient. But I think I have a little bit more capacity for long suffering, I guess you could say. Enduring things, but enduring things well. Because it's one thing to endure to the end, but it doesn't have to be hard. There can be joy in the long run. There can be joy while you're doing it. It doesn't just have to be hard. So I think that's one thing, to always see things with a positive light rather than the negative light, which a lot of people could have gone there and been like, oh my gosh, I'm in a mission with no warm water. I have to boil water every day to shower. That could be a hassle, and that could be a definite reason for somebody to go home. But it also could be the coolest learning experience ever, you know. There's a lot of ways that I've changed, but I think mostly, aside from the spiritual experiences that I've gained, is the love of the people, the love of the culture, the love of... There's a different kind of love down there. And I think I've brought that up here with me. And I think my capacity to love is just a little bit bigger because of the great people of Peru.
Yeah, what a great perspective, and I think something that a lot of missionaries do experience. It's hard to understand. I think maybe as you grow older, that comes anyways. But when you're young and you're going on a mission, it's hard to understand that you can love all of the people that you've never even met, and yet when you get there, you do, and it really changes you. And I think you're right. You do bring that back with you, where now you have a greater capacity to just love people, even those you've never met before. So that's a great change. Thanks for sharing that. If you could give some advice to those preparing for a mission, what would it be?
Learn how the Lord talks to you. Because it really depends on the mission, whether or not you need certain items or not. You can go in being a scripture guru or not. You can go in being the greatest seminary student that the world has ever seen, or a recent convert of a year it really doesn't matter. What matters is it's the Lord's work, so let Him do it through you. And if you don't know how He talks to you, I would advise learning how, because it's His work and He's going to do it. We just get the privilege of performing some of the miracles and being a part of it.
Wonderful.
That's probably
that's great advice. I think not only to those preparing for mission, but for all of us. Until we really understand how the Lord speaks to us, then we're going to probably flounder a little bit. But you're right that it doesn't really matter what your background is or how much time you've had in the church or any of those things. When you get on the mission, if you're there and you're worthy, then you turn it over to the Lord. And if you understand how He speaks to you, then you're going to see those wonderful miracles happen. So that's great. Thank you. How about for those who are already on their missions? If you could gather the missionaries of the world right now that are out serving, and you could give them one piece of advice, what would you say to them?
Remember your mothers. That sounds weird. And I mean it in a spiritual sense and a worldly sense. Remember your mother at home who raised you, who is kind of the backbone of who you are. Fathers are wonderful too. I am not discrediting fathers. There's a reason I say remember your mothers, and it's not because I am female. But I also think the stories of the women throughout the Bible and the Book of Mormon are far and few, but they are all strong stories. You have Ruth, you have Esther, those are just two of the classic examples, and they're found in the Bible. You have The one in the Book of Mormon who runs and tells the people, I can't remember her name. When King Lamoni falls to his feet and the queen gets up and she's like, no, my husband's not dead. He doesn't stink, so he's not dead. You've got fantastic stories of great women who, there's a reason they were put into the Bible, because the Bible and the Book of Mormon, because the Bible and the Book of Mormon, yes, it's a record of families, and yes, it's a record of the people, and yes, it's a record of teachings of the gospel, but it's a book of prophets. It's written by prophets, and it's written for the people. So there's a reason that there are these stories of women in there, because that none of them were prophets, but they were so important that the prophet decided to put them in there. Or the great council that put the Bible together, but somebody decided that they were deemed worthy enough, or spiritual enough to write about. And I am not discrediting any other story. I'm not saying that. I simply think that a lot of times in the mission, we focus on the missionaries and the missionary stories like Alma or the Sons of Mosiah or Nephi himself. There's a lot of great missionary moments throughout the scriptures. And so if we implement those teachings into our lives, into the mission work, then we're going to be a fantastic missionary. But if we also implement the other lessons that we can gather from the scriptures, imagine how much greater a missionary they would become. So remember your mothers who raised you, and remember that the stripling warriors won because of the faith of their mothers. And remember, I guess, remember where you come from, because on your name tag, you are representing yourself, you are representing your family, you are representing the church, you're representing everyone that has come before you and everyone that will come after you. But most importantly, you're representing Christ. So kind of act accordingly too.
That's definitely good advice, and I think that you know the point that you bring up is an important one, that often mothers are kind of the unsung heroes, and they don't get the credit that they deserve. But I think every missionary, with maybe some rare exceptions who weren't fortunate enough to have a mother in their life, recognizes while they're on their mission the strength that they get from their mothers and their fathers as well. But certainly their mothers play a very important role in their lives, and often that goes unsung. So how about for parents? Do you have any advice that you give to parents on how to prepare their young men or young women for serving on a mission?
How to prepare them?
Mm-hmm.
Well, from the Book of Mormon, you've got great examples. Learn wisdom in thy youth. Start young. And if you're recent convert family and your son or daughter hasn't had that opportunity to start young, start today. Because it doesn't actually matter where you are on your path of conversion. It matters that you continue. And it matters that you progress. And start today. Talking gospel doctrines over in the household is fantastic. It's actually not necessary, because the greatest missionary that I met in my entire life is the only member in her family. And they definitely did not have gospel conversations in the household. In fact, her mother is an atheist and her father is a Catholic. They did not talk about God at all. So I think it's making sure that the conversion process is continuing. So whether that be by gospel discussions, because maybe that's what the child needs, or the teenager, the youth, whatever, their youth going on mission, or whether it be being there supporting them through their decisions because you're not a member, whether it be praying fervently like Alma did for his son, Alma. Make sure that you're doing everything in your power to become a better disciple of Christ, and it will all work out. The Lord's the one who's instructing this. He's the playmaker. He knows what he's doing. And I really feel like it's different for each child and different for each parent. So that's why we're all given different talents.
I think that's great. If parents can really focus on helping their children be truly converted, then the other things kind of fall into place. So that's great advice.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we haven't asked you that you wanted to share?
I don't know.
You don't have to think of anything.
I have no clue. We talked about food. We talked about people.
We covered all the bases.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
We covered all the bases.
Talked about spirit.
Well, we just want to say thank you for being on our show tonight. You were a great guest, and we really appreciate you taking the time to do that.
It was a lot of fun. I really learned a lot from you and enjoyed the stories you shared and the testimony also of what you learned and how it applies to our lives. And I appreciate that a lot.
And speaking of testimony, just before we close, we'd love to hear your testimony in Spanish if you'd like to share it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. A ver, ¿dónde empezó? ¿Dónde empezar? Creo que primero tengo que decir que sé que Dios es un personaje amoroso. Sé que Dios vive, que tiene un hijo, Jesucristo, que nos dio para que podemos volver. Nos dio para que, aunque tenemos pecados y tenemos errores, muchos errores, porque somos como somos, que cada día, aunque tenemos esas cosas, cada día podemos mejorar, cada día podemos volver a Cristo cada día con nuestras acciones, con nuestro amor, con nuestros pensamientos. Es increíble. Tanto es el amor de Dios. Es increíble que Dios nos dio su Hijo amado, su Hijo primero, que Jesucristo murió para nosotros y murió para mí. Si Él podía hacerlo solo para mí, creo que lo haría. Bueno, sé que lo haría. Sé que José Smith fue un profeta que restauró la iglesia, que restauró las llaves que necesitamos para volver. Estoy muy animado para la conferencia que viene porque vamos a escuchar los profetas ahora. Vamos a escuchar a Thomas S. Monson. Él es el profeta. Él es la profeta que necesitamos en este tiempo. Sé que es llamado por Dios. Sé que los apóstoles y todos los que son nuestros líderes, sea obispado o no sé, alguien, tu amiga de cuarto, todos nuestros amigos y líderes son inspirados. Si Dios nos pone en la calle por nosotros, es porque les necesitamos. Sé que la iglesia es la iglesia de Dios en la tierra, que no hay nada más que necesitamos que el amor de Dios. Y lo sé porque he orado y me dijo en el nombre de Jesucristo.
Amen.
Amén.
Well, thank you very much. That was great. We had a great time interviewing you tonight, and really appreciate your time and the stories that you've shared.
Yeah, it's been a lot of
It
fun.
has been.
Good.
All right. Well, thanks. Tune in to our next episode when we'll be interviewing Ruby Robles. To check out past episodes of the show, visit our website, returnwithhonorshow.com, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you or someone you know would be a great guest for our show, let us know by sending us an email at rwhshow@gmail.com, and we'll see you next time on Return with Honor.